In this video, we'll be taking a look at 8 college football games, and I'll break them all down with free winning picks so you can bet smarter and win bigger. But first, smash that subscribe button and ring the bell so you get our picks the second they drop, because when the lines move, the early birds cash in. And if you want the full winning sport picks experience, head over to wspicks.com and check out our VIP packages, or grab a free consultation with one of our professional sports consultants for the sharpest edge you'll find anywhere. That's where the real plays live. We are your bookmaker's worst nightmare. These are the games we're hammering, the ones the books can't afford you to bet. This is Winning Sport Picks. The free picks are about to drop, and they're coming in hot. Kennesaw State versus New Mexico State sets up as one of those under-the-radar matchups where the flow of the game may matter far more than the individual strengths on paper. Kennesaw State prefers a grounded approach built on structure and rhythm, trying to control possessions with deliberate pacing and force opponents into long, mentally taxing drives. New Mexico State counters with a style that thrives on disruption, momentum bursts, sudden shifts in tempo, and sequences that flip the game script without warning. Kennesaw State wants quiet, methodical football. New Mexico State wants the opposite, a game full of volatility and leverage swings. This becomes a battle of which team forces the other out of its comfort zone. If Kennesaw State controls the pace, the game compresses. If New Mexico State injects unpredictability early, the whole rhythm breaks open. Stanford against North Carolina brings a clash of patience versus propulsion. Stanford plays their best ball when the game becomes a slow churn, exchanging long, patient drives and leaning into situational football where efficiency trumps explosiveness. North Carolina thrives when the environment becomes fluid, when tempo starts rolling, and when they can apply steady scoreboard pressure that forces opponents into uncomfortable sequencing. Stanford wants a controlled environment with minimal chaos. North Carolina wants an expanding one where possessions build on one another. This matchup may hinge on Stanford's ability to avoid early deficits and keep the tempo grounded. If UNC forces the game into a higher pace, Stanford's margin tightens quickly. Washington versus Wisconsin is a heavyweight style matchup built on contrasting visions of control. Washington tries to bend the game in their favor through consistent rhythm, sustaining drives and forcing opponents into extended defensive series. Wisconsin, on the other hand, wants to slow the game to a crawl, using physicality and selective aggression to force every yard to feel like an uphill climb. Washington's threat comes from persistence. Wisconsin's comes from disruption. This game becomes a test of in-game adaptability, especially in field position exchanges. Whichever team manages to tilt those hidden yards likely shapes the middle stretch of the contest. Texas State taking on Louisiana offers a matchup defined by micro momentum. Texas State is at their best when the game becomes open, with timing-based sequences that keep opponents adjusting. Louisiana thrives when the game condenses, when they can anchor possessions with discipline and force opponents to prove themselves repeatedly over long stretches. Texas State wants movement, a game that keeps shifting. Louisiana wants structure, a game that settles into a steady rhythm. This becomes a contest of which team can maintain its preferred pacing against resistance. Air Force versus San Jose State is a fascinating strategic duel built on possession control. Air Force thrives when the field shortens, when every possession carries weight, and when they are able to drain clock while subtly tightening pressure. San Jose State, however, is built around disruption, creating bursts of offense or defensive stands that reset momentum instantly. Air Force wants to limit the total number of possessions. San Jose State wants to increase them. The entire game may come down to how often Air Force can keep themselves on schedule versus how frequently San Jose State can force uncomfortable downs. Florida State taking on Clemson carries the feel of a classic emotional pacing battle. Florida State tends to shine when the environment loosens, when they can create stretches of sustained control and tilt the leverage of long possessions in their favor. Clemson thrives when the game becomes compressed, when defensive structure dictates the tone, and when opponents feel smothered into impatience. Florida State wants unfolding, rhythmic football, though Clemson wants constriction. This matchup hinges heavily on early drive discipline and limiting mistakes. Both teams can shape this game, but only one can create the tempo they want. California versus Louisville gives us an identity-driven contrast. California is at their most dangerous when the game opens up and flow becomes a real factor. Louisville, on the other hand, thrives in a controlled, systematic environment where possessions feel scripted and steady. California wants elasticity, unpredictability, and momentum swings. Louisville wants order, repetition, and leverage management. This matchup may hinge on defensive sustainability and how well each team handles mid-game adjustments. Wake Forest versus Virginia wraps the slate with a contest built on discipline. Wake Forest succeeds when games become about creativity within structure, keeping opponents guessing without losing control. Virginia prefers a firmer, more rigid approach, using situational leverage to pressure opposing offenses into mistakes. Wake Forest's best path is disrupting stability. Virginia's best path is enforcing it. This becomes a momentum tug-of-war where both teams will have windows of control, and whichever capitalizes on them earliest may dictate the closing pace. Now listen to me, those are the free picks, but the one game I am unloading on tonight, the game that's going to crush your bookie's soul, that's the VIP play of the day at WSPicks.com. This is the nuke, the hammer, the max bet, the one play I've circled, the game that will bury your bookmaker 6 feet under. When it hits, and it will, your bookie is going to need a doctor, a lawyer, and maybe even a priest. If you want to ride with me on the biggest bet of the day, get to WSPicks.com right now. Here's your recap. New Mexico State plus 10 and the over 52. Stanford plus 7 and the over 41. Wisconsin plus 11 and the over 44. Louisiana plus 3 and the over 63. Air Force plus 6 and the under 66. Florida State plus 11 and the under 56. California plus 18 and the over 49. Virginia minus 6 and the over 47. This is Winning Sport Picks, where we don't just bet, we bury bookmakers. Smash that subscribe button, drop your favorite plays in the comments, and hammer that like button like you're hammering your bookie into the dirt. We're cashing, we're dominating, and tonight we're dancing on the grave of your bookmaker. Let's go!